The cry in the alley was a cold evening in downtown Los Angeles. The sun had dipped below the skyline, leaving the streets in a gray, tired hush. Traffic hummed. People hurried home, and somewhere between a dumpster and a cracked brick wall, a baby cried. Keanu Reeves had just wrapped a long day on set. He wasn't wearing designer clothes. No cameras followed him now. He liked it that way. His old motorcycle rolled to a stop near a small diner. He needed coffee, maybe peace, but before his boots hit the pavement, he heard a sound no human heart could ignore. It was faint at first, like a lost kitten. But as he stepped closer to the alley next to the diner, it grew louder. A baby, not just crying, screaming, desperate, broken, as if it knew it had been left behind. Keanu froze. He'd heard many things in his life: applause, engines, even gunshots during filming. But this sound was different. This sound went through his skin and touched his bones. He walked into the alley slowly. Trash bins, a pile of blankets, an old pizza box, and then there it was, a baby, tiny, wrapped in a thin, torn towel. No name, no note, just big brown eyes filled with fear and hunger. He crouched down and whispered, "Hey, hey, it's okay." The baby stopped crying for just a second, stared at him, then wailed again. Keanu didn't hesitate. He took off his flannel shirt, wrapped it around the child, and picked it up gently. The baby smelled like old milk and the streets. His heart broke. People walked by. No one noticed. Or maybe they didn't want to. But Keanu couldn't just walk away. Inside the diner, people looked up as he entered. Some recognized him, some didn't. But all stared at the soaked baby in his arms. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, gasped, "Keanu, is that a—" "I think someone left her," he said quietly. Outside, in the alley, she didn't ask questions. Instead, she ran to the back and returned with a warm towel and a small bottle of milk she used for tea. "You want to call someone?" she asked. Keanu looked at the baby again. Her hands were so small, shaking. She didn't even have a bracelet. No name tag, no clue. "I'll take her to the hospital," he replied. "But can you help me first? Just for a few minutes." They sat at a booth. He tried feeding her. At first, she refused. Then, slowly, she sucked at the bottle, making soft, wet noises. She calmed down. Her eyes slowly closed. Keanu didn't eat that night. He just watched her sleep. And something happened. He felt something inside him shift. It wasn't a decision yet, but it was a seed, a feeling that maybe he was meant to find her. The next hour was filled with forms and questions. The hospital took the baby in gently, ran tests, and thanked him for bringing her in. "Do you want to leave your contact information?" a nurse asked. He hesitated, then wrote his full name, number, and a note. "Please call me if no one comes." For her, 3 days passed. No one called. No mother, no father, no family, no answers. Keanu called the hospital himself. "How is she?" he asked. The nurse on the line smiled. "She's doing better, but still no visitors, no records, no birth certificate. We've called CPS. They'll come tomorrow." Keanu hung up. And sat still for a long time. He had no children. He had once imagined that years ago, before life tore away the people he loved. But those dreams faded, or so he thought, until this baby. He drove back to the hospital that night, not to make a decision, just to see her again. She was awake this time, tiny fingers grabbing at the air. When he entered, she smiled, a real smile. The nurse looked surprised. She hasn't smiled like that all day. Keanu stood by her crib and said softly, "You remember me?" The baby made a small cooing sound. He placed a finger in her hand. She squeezed it. His heart broke again, and he knew that wasn't just a baby. That was a soul, a life, a beginning. The next morning, he met with CPS. They were kind, but overloaded and strict. "You understand, Mr. Reeves, there's a process," the woman said. "She'll go into temporary foster care first." "Can I apply?" he asked. She blinked. "Apply to foster her or adopt her?" The woman looked at the forms. "You're serious?" He nodded. Double quotes. "Do you know what you're getting into?" "No," he said honestly, "but I know I'm not walking away." She smiled. We'll start the paperwork. But it's a long road. He didn't mind. Because sometimes, family chooses you. And this baby, with no name and no past, had just chosen him. And he was ready to fight for her future, even if it meant changing his entire life. What Keanu didn't know, what no one knew, was that this child's past was darker than anyone imagined. And her arrival in his life was no accident. But for now, all he saw was hope. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had something to live for beyond himself. This was just the beginning. Asterisk the name she never had the morning after. Keanu applied to foster the baby girl. The world outside felt the same. The sun still rose. Traffic still crawled. Strangers still stared at their phones. But inside Keanu Reeves, everything had changed. He couldn't explain it in words. Not even to himself. It was like something had been unlocked. Something quiet and gentle that had been buried under years of silence and survival. Ever since he lost the people he loved, his daughter, his partner, he had carried that ache like a shadow. But holding this nameless baby made him feel lighter, not healed, not fixed, but alive. The legal process began fast, then slow. That's how it always went. First there were meetings, background checks, home visits, interviews. They asked him questions about parenting, safety, finances, emotional readiness. He answered them all honestly. Have you ever raised a child before? No. Do you understand the responsibilities of being a single foster parent? I understand. I'm not walking away. They wrote down every word he said. Social workers came to inspect his home. They looked through every room. They checked smoke detectors, medicine cabinets, even the height of the crib he had already bought online. You really did all this in a week? One of them asked. Keanu nodded. I had help. Some of the crew from my last film volunteered to build the nursery. She smiled. You're not like most applicants. He wasn't trying to be different. He just couldn't imagine the baby going to someone else. Not after that alley. Not after. She smiled at him. A few days later, he returned to the hospital. The baby had been moved to a quiet room in the pediatrics unit, away from the noise. She looked stronger now. Her skin had more color. Her eyes were wide and alert. She kicked her legs gently, as if dancing to a music only she could hear. Keanu brought a small stuffed bunny. I thought you might like some company, he whispered. She blinked at the bunny, then turned to him and reached out with her little fingers. He smiled. You need a name, he said softly. The nurse beside him looked over. Any thoughts? Keanu sat back inside. I've been thinking about that all week. Something simple. Something strong. He looked into the baby's eyes. Maya, he said at last. It means illusion, but also magic. Something hidden, something deep. The nurse repeated it. Maya, I like that. Maya. The name seemed to settle in the air. And when the baby heard it, she made a tiny sound, half laugh, half coo. Keanu's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, he said, that's your name now. But naming her didn't mean everything was solved. The system was still watching. And though he had been granted temporary custody, it wasn't permanent. The paperwork for full adoption would take months, maybe longer. And one morning, he received a call that changed everything. Mr. Reeves, the woman on the other end said, we need you to come in. Immediately. It's about Maya's birth records. He drove fast, nervous, heart racing. When he arrived at the child welfare office, they brought him into a private room. There was a file on the desk. We got something unusual, the caseworker said. Someone ran a fingerprint scan from the hospital. Standard for unknown infants. She opened the file. The prints match a child who was reported stillborn 2 months ago in another state. Keanu frowned. Stillborn, yes, she continued. The mother, her name is Adriana Wren, filed a death certificate for her daughter, but the body was never found. Now, we believe Maya is that baby. Keanu sat still, stunned. How is that possible? He asked. The woman hesitated. We don't know yet. But if it's true, someone may have taken her after birth, or faked her death, or worse. Keanu's mind reeled. Someone had declared Maya dead, and now she was in his arms, alive, safe, but maybe in danger. We've contacted authorities in Texas, the caseworker added. They're opening an investigation. What happens? To her, he asked quietly. Nothing yet. She's still under your foster care. But we need to prepare. In case a biological parent steps forward. Keanu nodded slowly. I won't let her be hurt again. He returned home that night with Maya in his arms. She was asleep, wrapped in a soft blanket, holding the stuffed bunny close. He sat in the nursery, rocking gently. So many questions. So few answers. Why would someone fake a baby's death? Why was she abandoned in an alley? Who was this woman Adriana Wren? And most of all, what if someone came to take Maya away? He looked down at her. I don't care how long it takes. He whispered, I will fight for you. I will protect you, no matter what. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, a stranger showed up outside his home. A young woman with tired eyes and trembling hands. She didn't speak, just held out a worn photograph. It was a picture of a newborn, tiny, wrapped in the same towel Keanu had found in the alley. Behind her, a black car waited. Are you Keanu Reeves? She asked softly. He nodded, stepping in front of Maya's stroller. The woman's voice cracked. She's mine. Everything stopped. Keanu stared at her, unsure if it was fear, shock, or something deeper flooding his chest. I thought she died, the woman whispered. But I was lied to. Tears fell from her eyes. And suddenly, everything Keanu thought he knew about the baby began to change. The woman in the shadow Keanu stood frozen in his driveway. The light breeze brushing against his shirt, but he didn't feel it. Everything around him faded. The noise, the movement, even the sound of Maya's soft breathing in the stroller beside him. All he could see was the young woman standing in front of him, holding a faded photograph like it was the last piece of her soul. Her voice was small, but shook with something heavy. She's mine. She's my daughter. Keanu didn't answer. At first, not because he doubted her, but because his heart didn't know what to do. Every instinct screamed to protect Maya, but another part whispered, what if she's telling the truth? He looked down at the picture in her hand. It was worn, edges curling. But the baby in the photo, those eyes, that expression, there was no denying it. It was Maya, or whoever she was before she became Maya. He finally asked, gently. What's your name? Adriana, she said, trying to steady her voice. Adriana Wren. Keanu looked at her more carefully. She was young, maybe mid-20s. Her hair was tied back, but messy. Her jeans had holes. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. And behind her eyes was a pain Keanu knew too well. Please, she whispered. Can I just see her? Keanu didn't speak. Instead, he knelt beside the stroller. Maya was sleeping peacefully, her little hand wrapped around the ear of the stuffed bunny. She looked so calm, so safe. He gently lifted her blanket, just enough so Adriana could see her face. Adriana's lips trembled. She reached up, covering her mouth with both hands as tears rolled down her cheeks. Oh my God, she breathed. It's really her. Keanu finally spoke. They said you filed a death certificate. They lied to me, she said quickly, stepping back, looking away. I didn't know she was alive. I swear, I was sedated, drugged. I was in a clinic, not a real hospital. They told me she died. They wouldn't let me see her or hold her. Keanu's heart twisted. He had read stories. Things like this happened. Dark things. Babies taken from poor or vulnerable mothers, sold, discarded, forgotten. He felt anger rising. Who are they? He asked softly. Adriana shook her head. I don't know exactly. But after I got clean, I started digging, and I found a woman, a nurse who worked there. She told me the truth, that my baby might still be out there. Keanu looked down at Maya, then back at Adriana. Why was she in an alley? Adriana shook her head again, more desperate now. I don't know. I don't know who had her before. I've been searching for months. I didn't even know if she was alive. Then last week, I saw your face in a news clip, holding a baby. It was like being struck by lightning. I knew. I just knew. Keanu stood quietly for a long moment. He wanted to protect Maya, but now he also wanted the truth. Come inside, he said finally. Adriana blinked. Really? Yeah, he said, but just to talk. No surprises, no lawyers, not yet. Inside his home, Maya slept on a soft blanket while Adriana sat on the edge of the couch, staring at her, unable to stop crying. Keanu made tea, not because it solved anything, but because it was something to do with his hands while his mind tried to make sense of the storm inside him. You said you were sedated? He asked. She nodded, cradling the cup in both hands. I was in a bad place. My boyfriend at the time, he took me to a private clinic. I thought it was to help me deliver safely, but after the birth, everything went dark. They told me she was gone. No funeral, no body, just gone. Why would they do that? Money, she said bitterly. I think they were selling babies, newborns, especially from women like me. No support, no family, no power. Keanu clenched his jaw. The thought made his stomach turn. I've spent every dollar I had trying to find her, Adriana added. I've been living in shelters, working odd jobs. I don't want anything from you. I want to know her. Even if you raise her, I'll stay away. Just let me know she's okay. Keanu stared at her. She wasn't asking for custody. Not yet. She wasn't threatening him. Not yet. But he also saw the fire in her eyes. And he knew this wasn't over. I believe you, he said finally. She looked up, surprised. But believing doesn't mean this will be easy, he continued. There's a process, and more than anything, I want to make sure Maya is safe, loved, protected. Me too, Adriana whispered. Even if it's not with me. Keanu looked at Maya, then back at her. We'll figure this out, he said, together. But deep inside, he wasn't sure he could give her up. He wasn't sure he could lose this child who had brought light into his darkness. And something told him the fight for Maya was only beginning. The next day, Keanu contacted his lawyer, not because he wanted to battle Adriana, but because Maya deserved protection. You need to file a motion for temporary guardianship, his lawyer said, and you'll want to request a full investigation into the original clinic. Adriana agreed to cooperate. She even signed a statement about what she had experienced. But that didn't stop the headlines. Within 48 hours, the story leaked. Keanu Reeves fostering baby abandoned in alley. Now birth mother steps forward. Paparazzi surrounded his home. Reporters waited at the hospital. Strangers argued online, some calling him a hero, others calling him a thief. Adriana went into hiding. And through it all, Maya kept smiling. The storm raged outside. But inside that little nursery, there was peace. There was warmth. One night, as Keanu held Maya close, rocking her gently under a soft light, he whispered, "You're my daughter, no matter what anyone says." She looked up at him with sleepy eyes. And in that moment, he made a silent promise. No matter what it cost him. No matter who stood in the way, he would never let her go. The betrayal that broke him. Keanu Reeves was never the kind of man who sought attention. He lived a quiet life, far from the noise of fame, far from cameras and red carpets unless duty called him there. But now his name was everywhere. Not for a film, not for a charity event, but for something deeply personal, something sacred. Headlines screamed across screens. Hollywood star fights to keep mystery baby after birth mom. A peer's interviews were requested. Rumors spread. Strangers debated his heart online like it was a performance. But Keanu wasn't acting. This was real. Maya was real. And every morning when she reached for his finger with those tiny, trusting hands, he knew she was already his. Yet the world didn't care about feelings. The system didn't care about love. It cared about rules, papers, bloodlines. And that's when the betrayal hit. It came on a Thursday afternoon. Warm sun, quiet breeze. Keanu had just finished feeding Maya mashed bananas when his lawyer called, voice tense. "Keanu," he said, "I need you to sit down." Keanu braced himself. "What happened?" "We just received a notice, Adriana. She's filed for full custody." Keanu didn't understand. "What?" She said she wasn't ready. She said she just wanted to be part of Maya's life. People change, Keanu. Or maybe someone changed her mind. The words hit like a punch to the chest. He stood up, paced, heart racing. He thought of Adriana's tears, her trembling hands, her whisper that she didn't want to take Maya away. "There's more," his lawyer continued. "Her new legal team is aggressive. They're claiming you used your wealth and influence to delay the adoption process unfairly. They want an emergency hearing." Keanu stared out the window. The sky seemed darker now. "Who's funding her?" he asked. "She didn't even have a car." There was a pause. "A foundation," the lawyer said, "called New Cradle. They're known for controversial interventions in adoption cases, lots of legal power, and media reach." Keanu clenched his jaw. Someone had found Adriana. Someone had convinced her that Maya didn't just belong in her life, but should be taken from Keanu completely. He felt like the ground beneath him was cracking. That night, as Maya slept soundly in her crib, Keanu sat in the nursery for hours. The soft hum of the baby monitor was the only sound. He stared at the wall at the pictures he'd taken of her. Her first smile, her first laugh, her tiny hand gripping his thumb. He remembered the alley, the cold, the smell, the silence, and how none of it mattered the moment he heard her cry. He didn't want to fight Adriana. He didn't want Maya to grow up between courtrooms and custody papers. But something told him this was not about one mother's love. It was about power, control, headlines. And Keanu had no intention of turning this little girl into a media story. He called his lawyer again. "I'm not going to smear Adriana," he said, "but I want the truth out. My truth. Maya's truth." The next day, Keanu recorded a message. Not for the courts, not for the lawyers, but for the world. He sat on a simple wooden chair, no lighting crew, no edits, just his voice, steady, quiet, raw. "I'm not a perfect man," he began. "I've made mistakes. I've lost people I loved. I've seen pain. But when I found Maya, something changed in me. I didn't know her name. I didn't know her story. But I knew this no child should be left in the dark, crying in an alley." His eyes softened. "I love her, not because she's a symbol, not because she makes me look good, but because she is light in a world that often feels too heavy." He paused. "I won't fight dirty, but I will fight with everything. I have to make sure Maya grows up knowing she was wanted, chosen, loved." The video spread like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags trended. Fans and strangers from all walks of life rallied behind him. Celebrities reposted. Mothers cried. Fathers wrote letters. Even judges commented privately about the raw honesty in his message. But none of it guaranteed victory. And then, something even more unexpected happened. Adriana disappeared. A week before the emergency hearing, her lawyers reported that she was unreachable. The foundation stopped returning calls. The case was stalled, frozen. Keanu didn't know what to feel. Relief, confusion, fear. He wanted answers, but most of all, he wanted Maya to feel safe. He needed closure, not chaos. And just when he thought the storm had passed, his doorbell rang. He opened it slowly. A young man stood there, rough beard, nervous eyes. "You don't know me," he said, "but I'm the father." Keanu's stomach dropped. "Maya's father," he whispered. The man nodded. "Can I come in?" The secret they tried to bury. Keanu stood in his doorway, the light from the hallway falling unevenly on the stranger's face. The young man in front of him looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, not from drugs or drink, but from something deeper: shame, regret, fear. "You're the father?" Keanu asked again, quietly. The man nodded. "My name's Nico. I was with Adriana before everything happened." Keanu stepped aside without a word. He didn't trust him, not yet. But something in Nico's face told him this wasn't a stunt. This wasn't about the spotlight or drama. This was about truth. They sat in the kitchen. Maya was asleep upstairs. The baby monitor glowed softly on the counter beside them. "I didn't know she was alive," Nico began, his hands trembling as they wrapped around a glass of water. "I swear, man, I thought she died. They told us, after the birth, that she didn't make it." Keanu studied him. "You were there?" "Yes," he nodded. "We went to a clinic in a small town in Texas. It wasn't a hospital. It was just a house. We were desperate. We didn't have money. She was 8 months, pregnant, and we were scared. They promised it would be safe, private." His voice cracked. "They took her into a back room. Wouldn't let me come in. Then a few hours later, one of the nurses told me the baby didn't make it. They didn't even let us see her." Keanu leaned forward, his voice low. Did you sign anything? Nico nodded slowly. I was high back then. Not proud of it. But yeah, they made us sign papers. Said it was for medical release. But now I think they were something else. I think they took her and sold her. Keanu's stomach twisted. Why are you here now? He asked. Nico hesitated, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a letter. Because Adriana is gone. Keanu froze. Gone? Nico nodded. I found this in her motel room. She left it for me. She's scared. She said they threatened her, told her to back off, that if she didn't file for full custody, she'd lose everything. They offered her money, illegal help, said they'd fix her record. He handed the letter to Keanu. It was handwritten, messy, tear-stained. Adriana's words spilled across the paper like a confession. I didn't know what to do. I never wanted to take her from him, but they wouldn't stop. They said she was worth more than either of us. I think they're watching me. If anything happens to me, tell Keanu I'm sorry. Tell Maya I love her. Keanu sat still. His chest burned. Do you know who they are? He asked. Nico shook his head. Just that they work with some private group. One of the women had a badge, not a real cop, but something close. Keanu stood. He paced the room, trying to control the anger rising inside him. Someone was threatening Maya's mother, using her fear, her past, her poverty to manipulate her. And for what? Profit? Power? They don't care about the baby, Nico said, reading Keanu's mind. She's just a piece on the board to them. Keanu turned to him. So why are you here? Nico looked up. Because I want to do what's right. Not for me. Not even for Adriana. For Maya. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Nico asked the question that would change everything. Would you let me meet her? Just once? Keanu didn't answer right away. His body was tense, protective. Every fiber of his being told him to keep Maya away from strangers, from pain, from the past. But something in Nico's face, something broken and raw, softened Keanu's heart. She's asleep, he said gently. But you can sit with her. Just for a moment. They climbed the stairs slowly. The hallway was dark, moonlight slipping in through the windows. Keanu opened the nursery door. Maya was curled up in her crib, her soft breathing steady and peaceful. Nico stepped inside, silently. He dropped to his knees beside the crib and wept. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, aching cry that seemed to come from a place beyond words. Keanu watched from the doorway, and for the first time, he saw the full picture. This wasn't a simple story. This wasn't good versus evil. This was a web of wounds stitched together by desperation, survival, and love. And Maya, this tiny child, was at the center of it all. The next morning, Keanu made a decision. He called his lawyer, then the detective working the case in Texas. I want to go public again, he said. Are you sure? The lawyer asked. Things finally calmed down. Not enough, Keanu replied. People need to know what's happening, not just to me but to others, other families, other babies. That night, he released another video. This time, he sat beside Maya's crib, holding her hand. He didn't speak with anger. He didn't name names, but his words cut deep. Some people think babies are just paperwork, just business. They forget that every child is a story, a soul, a future. Maya deserves more than silence. So do thousands of others who never got a second chance. This isn't about me. This is about truth and love and the right to feel safe. The world listened again. But this time, it wasn't just fans. It was lawmakers, journalists, child advocacy groups. Whispers turned into waves. Within days, the Texas clinic was raided. Files were found, names, payments, records of children taken under false reports. And there, in a dusty cabinet, was Maya's original birth certificate. Adriana Wren and Nico Torres. Keanu stood in the court 2 weeks later, holding Maya in his arms. Adriana, freshly out of hiding, stood beside Nico. Both of them looked at Keanu with tearful eyes, and in the silence of that courtroom, something rare happened. A judge didn't just read from a script. She looked at all three of them, then at the baby. And said, this child has been failed, but Not by you, any of you. You've all chosen love over ego, healing over blame, and for that, she wins. She paused. Mr. Reeves, you may continue the adoption process. With the blessing of both biological parents. Keanu turned to Adriana and Nico. They nodded. Tears flowed. And Maya, unaware of the battle fought for her, reached for Keanu's face and giggled. The day she became his daughter. Courtroom was quiet. After the judge finished speaking, but something deep moved through the air, a feeling that couldn't be named. Keanu stood still, Maya in his arms, her small fingers playing with the buttons on his shirt. Adriana wept softly beside Nico. The courtroom clerk wiped her eyes with a tissue, and even the bailiff's face had softened. No one clapped. There was no music, but in that silence, something holy had happened. Outside, reporters waited like shadows on the sidewalk. Cameras flashed, questions flew, but Keanu didn't stop to talk. He shielded Maya gently with his hand, walked down the courthouse steps with quiet strength, and slipped into the waiting car. Inside, everything slowed. Maya giggled as she played with the bunny in her lap. Keanu looked at her, then out the window, as sunlight broke through the clouds. She was his now, not just in his heart, not just in the eyes of the world, but in law, in soul, in truth. 6 weeks later, Keanu sat in his backyard, holding a small white envelope in one hand and a warm bottle of milk in the other. The envelope had arrived that morning, official, sealed, heavy with meaning. He waited until the sun was just right, until the birds began singing again, before he opened it. Certificate of adoption, child's legal name, Maya Reeves, adoptive parent. Keanu Charles Reeves's hands trembled. He stared at her name on the paper, not just scribbled, not borrowed, but real, forever. She had a name now, a future, a father. Keanu looked at Maya, who was now crawling across the grass with a little laugh, chasing butterflies she could never catch. Her hair had grown thicker, curling slightly at the ends. Her cheeks were rounder, her eyes brighter. He never expected to be a father at this stage of life, never planned it, never dared dream it after all the pain. But now, as he watched her reach out for the sky, he felt something he had not felt in years: wholeness. Later that evening, Adriana visited with a small box in her hands. She and Nico had chosen to move to another city, to begin again, away from the past, but they had stayed in touch on their terms, respectful, careful, grateful. Adriana handed the box to Keanu. This belonged to her grandmother, she said. I think Maya should have it. Inside was a tiny silver bracelet, old, handmade, with one word engraved faintly: hope. Keanu ran his thumb over the word and nodded. Maya played with Nico's shoelaces on the porch, babbling happily. We're not perfect, Adriana said, but you saved her, and us. Double quotes. Keanu looked up. You gave her life. I just got lucky enough to find her. You gave her more than luck, Nico said. You gave her a future. Before they left, Adriana bent down, kissed Maya on the forehead, and whispered, be kind, little one. You've already seen more than most people ever will. That night, Keanu held Maya in his lap beside the fireplace. She stared at the flames, hypnotized. You know, he whispered, they say souls pick their families before they're born. Maybe you chose me, or maybe we both just got lost and found each other anyway. Maya reached up and touched his face, and then just before drifting into sleep, she said her first real word, or dada. Keanu froze. Tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't move. He didn't want to scare the moment away. Say it again, he whispered. But she was already asleep, her head resting on his chest. The word echoed in his mind over and over. It wasn't just a sound. It was a bridge across the deepest pain he'd ever known. A healing, a beginning. 1 year later, Keanu walked through the park, Maya now walking beside him, her tiny hand wrapped around 2 of his fingers. She wore a little red jacket. Her bunny was still with her, a bit more worn now, but loved. People recognized him, but they didn't come too close anymore. Not after everything. They smiled, waved, respected the quiet bond between a man and his daughter. On a bench near the lake, Keanu pulled out a journal. He had been writing letters to Maya since the day he brought her home. She couldn't read them yet, but one day she would. And when she did, she would know exactly how much she was wanted, how deeply she was loved. He added a new entry. Dear Maya, today you chased ducks and called the sun Goldie. You held my hand so tight when we passed the barking dog, then let go just to pick a flower for a stranger sitting alone. I don't know how someone so small can hold so much goodness inside, but you do, and I will spend every day of my life making sure you never feel abandoned again. You saved me, little one, more than I ever saved you. He closed the book, looked at her, and smiled. Maya looked up at him with eyes that had already lived 1,000 lifetimes and still chose joy. They sat there quietly, wind brushing their cheeks, leaves dancing in the breeze. And in that simple, ordinary moment, the world felt right. Complete. Whole. Because sometimes, family isn't who you're born to. It's who you hold on to when everything else falls away. And in a world that forgot her, she found a man who would never let go, not ever.